You want to do the welcome then?
Morning.
Welcome back, everyone. Our ongoing quest to build a culture of empathy. We are recording this call for educational and promotional purposes. And of course, we'd like to do a short round of check-ins. Take up to 30 seconds. I'll just hold my little stopwatch up after 30 seconds. And the topic, any questions or comments from the last session? How was your empathy buddy call? Or any short report from facilitating an empathy circle. And I will call on people, and let's start with Wayne. Probably good for us to be on mute until we speak.
Okay, thank you very much. I continue to learn with empathy circles, and had a great call with a buddy call with Kelly. We talked about music in the background and how that might link people together, and I found that call really fascinating, really interesting, and yeah, looking forward to learning even more about the empathy circles.
Thank you. Savannah.
Hi. I didn't have really anything. I did enjoy last session, so I'm excited for this session as well to see what I can learn.
Welcome. And Daniel.
Hi, yeah, I'm also excited for this week's session and looking forward to what we'll discuss as well. And my buddy system this week was, it went really, it was very educational for me. And I think, you know, it was a good first run, and I hope to continue more and get more practice as well.
Yes. Shyla. And you're on mute, Shyla.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hello everyone. I am also going to second others who have said it's very exciting, and I'm looking forward to today's meeting. And I've realized that this is going to be a lifelong process for me, and it's just going to take a lot of practice. And when I had a buddy call with Mona, we had a great time. We did our homework. We connected, doing the empathy circle for half an hour. And then we spent some time just connecting with each other and just getting to know each other. And I really enjoyed that. And Mona and I, both being mothers, we could also relate to how we have a tendency to jump in to fix things, but a lot of times people just want to be heard. And just understanding via hearing is such a powerful process. So I'm learning a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. And B.
Hey, I also wasn't able to make last week. So other than just normal empathy circles, this is going to be my first facilitator training session. So I'm just really excited to see how everything's going to work, and looking forward to joining the culture and learning.
Welcome. And Joni.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be back. I thought a lot about trying to schedule a circle with some friends or family, and I realized I was pretty nervous to hold my own circle. So I felt like I needed another training of this before I could. But I also had some questions. I realized I'm very detail oriented, and I think part of my fear is that I'm not sure, we've talked that empathy circles can have 2 to 5, but what is the best number? What if you have more than 5? Can that still work? Should we do the practice with even 2? And then how long is the ideal time? I think it will help me feel more confident to just have a little more structure to be able to do my own. And I guess if people who've done it before are starting out, do you have recommendation for the right types of family or friends to invite that you've seen it work well and become more confident with? So thank you.
Sure, we're all learning together. And Dominic, hello.
Hi, everyone. First off, Daniel and I had a nice buddy call.
And that kind of made me realize how important the number of people are in terms of like how it feels. Like it felt like an empathy line back and forth versus a circle. So I thought that was interesting to experience. And in facilitating an empathy circle, I actually facilitated it with a group of high school friends, just like 6 or 7 guys, and made me realize that as much as I think that me and my friends talk emotionally, we really don't. And we fall into the category of like guys who just kind of hang out and do stuff together. And so it was kind of striking to listen to some of my best friends of like 8 years say some things that I never heard them say. And like one of them said, after I debriefed, I said, how did that feel? And one of them said it was like a free group therapy session. And then another one was like, same time next week. And I was like, sweet, yeah. So it went well. I guess Joni, it was 7 people total, and I felt like that worked for me. Yeah, thank you.
Wow, quite a report, Dominic. Mona.
I'm super excited as usual. Like Edwin said, I'm doing another session, facilitated training. So I have 2 buddy call during the week. But last week I was way out of my submitting to submit my homework, so I didn't have a facilitated with my family. But I have my buddy call with Sheila. It was like really a good experience. We talk around like 1 hour and so, and I just think we just stopped because I need to go and bring my kids from school.
Yes.
That's why we stopped talking to each other. And yeah, it was like connected with people, with the embassy talking in the first, and then sharing our experience and idea about parenting and about education. And it's really lovely conversation when you started with empathy, and then even when you go to like regular conversation, you still have those, like I'm waiting her to finish her talk and I just start to talk to her back, and it's really helpful. Yeah. And I'm not trying, my husband is pushing me to roll him in the second session, cohort 12. So I'm doing the training with him until he can have a time that work with his schedule. So I'm recruiting people to the facilitated training.
Thank you. I hear you and Dominic both saying that connecting is satisfying, is meaningful, is reinforcing. Elizabeth.
So my first empathy circle, this was before our first session. I started out with just my mom and my sister on Zoom since I'm comfortable with them, because I was pretty nervous. So that was like a really good start, and we had some good conversations. And then last week, I had a friend from New York and a friend from where I used to live in another town in Indiana. We had a little empathy triangle, and I didn't notice, like I didn't do this on purpose, but they both ended up being educators. So they had never met each other, but got to like talk about a lot of things when they switched turns, which was really cool. And I love listening to people talk and just like hear what's going on in their brain. And also I got to meet with Alyssa this week, which was really awesome. And she is here, but I can't see her, but she's so funny. And like, she's really good at telling stories. So I really enjoyed talking to her as well.
Thank you. Monica?
Hi, everyone. So I wasn't able to connect with for the buddy call. I didn't get an email back, but I did have an empathy circle with my siblings. And something that I got out of that conversation was how to listen to someone from a place of understanding, because I feel that oftentimes when, just like in general conversations, I feel like it's a common thing to hear someone and just wait for your turn to speak, but having an empathy circle kind of just like allowed me to just try to process more what someone else is saying.
Yes, indeed. And Alyssa, I might need some help with pronouncing your name.
It's pronounced Elisa.
Lisa, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So I couldn't hold an empathy circle, but I did meet up with my empathy buddy this past week, and we did practice the empathy circle format. And much like everyone, it was nice to see a different way of, like, from the different way of communicating. It provided almost like a new window into what was going on that, like, didn't necessarily fit with the conversation before.
Thank you. So wonderful to hear from you. Let's hear from our facilitators, starting with Edwin.
I had a really good empathy buddy call with Timothy. Usually we split, 15 minutes. He gave me the full half hour, which felt really good. I just laid on my sofa. We used the phone and just got to get a lot of things off my chest. So really appreciated it. So that was me.
On to Timothy.
Yeah, two things. I'm really appreciating the feedback that folks left in the form. 7 of you responded with your questions and stuff. So please fill that out every week. After today, you'll get a link to it. I also enjoyed my call with Edwin. I also had a call with Bill talking about really stewarding this training, taking really good care of it. And I really appreciate it. I was very inspired by that. And then also, I had an empathy circle about an interesting topic. I have a bunch of neighbors. We all live on land owned by one person. What happens if that person gets sick and dies? What happens to all of us? It was a good question. And so the empathy circle was very meaningful and very passionate. And so I'm enjoying, if you have a really good question, the empathy circle can really take on a nice, rich life of its own. So I had a good circle this week with my neighbors. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. And Kelly?
Hi. Yeah, it's really nice to hear everyone's shares today. I had a good week for empathy. I hosted an empathy circle on Clubhouse for the first time. It's kind of experimental, and I did it with hip hop beats in the background. Because this group of people that I did it with does like freestyle and verbal expression. And it was really, this was something I talked with Wayne about, and we really connected on that, and the circle went great. And everyone just really, it just kind of came alive in the circle, which was really great.
Thanks. And Bill?
Yeah, well, I've been doing a lot of trainings, and I had a great, great buddy call with Timothy. And I'm also working on how to adapt this for schools and things like that. So I have some ideas about that if people want to use me as a resource. Thanks.
Yeah. And I'm Susan, and a group met in my backyard. We're neighbors and know each other pretty well. And we were exploring a tough topic. How do we feel about getting old? And it was really important to hear people really listen and appreciate and dive into the deeper feelings. It was quite meaningful. Thank you for your check-ins. Onward.
Okay, I think Timothy will address the feedback now.
Yeah, we've got some great questions, both just now, but also in the feedback. And I'd like to take about, 8 minutes or so, 8 or 9 minutes, leave about 4 minutes for our transition. So what I'd like to do is read some of these questions and begin to respond, but also ask the other trainers if you have any comments. So this is kind of like a little digest of answers for you participants, okay? There's one question that I like right off the bat. What techniques can I use to stay present and engaged in the circle? Sometimes our attention wanders, right? My quick answer for that is design the circle around a really good question that people are passionate about. So a great question, a great topic for the group you're with will bring a lot of energy to the circle. So that's number one. Number two, I would say if you're participating, make a choice to get real and very honest in your time. Speak what really matters for you, what is truly alive, even if it has nothing to do with the question. Just get as real as you can from your own perspective. That way, people are going to feel that and tend to respond, and it kind of elevates the circle, right? It injects some power into the circle. So just being really real. Those are two initial little tips to bring like your engagement to the circle where you're tuned in and you're actually interested. So that's any other from the trainers, any other thoughts around that, keeping attention?
I have a thought, and I'm not just sure of whether it's appropriate. When I was teaching listening, I had a quick little exercise that helped people pay attention. And the people at the telephone company said it was the most valuable thing they ever learned, but I don't know how to fit it in here. So it's just a procedural question of how to contribute.
Yeah.
So let's not do it for right now, but
yeah. But now you got everybody's attention. So if you write a little something in the chat for later, describe it, or maybe
yes,
I'm interested. Come on, the telephone company likes it. Come on, I want to hear it.
Okay, so
yes.
we can do that maybe later, or we can put it in the email or something. Another question was, I appreciated deeply was, listen, there's many ways to empathically listen to someone. What are unique, distinct cultural ideas and behaviors in the way that people empathically listen from different cultures, right? Different groups, neighborhoods, identities, backgrounds, right? And how does that impact the speaker and designing or having an empathy circle for a certain group? So, my initial response is this. Now, I'm speaking in my experience living in San Francisco and being a counselor for people from all over the world every day, all the time. Empathy is a human mammalian need. And so we're aligning ourselves with the process of being heard and known. And we know that every human, needs that at some level, right? So we're aligning ourselves with that. Building from that, what do all humans need for empathy to happen? Well, the empathy circle provides a few of those conditions, right? It provides time, provides space, provides a certain level of mutuality. People are going to be willing to go back and forth. Also, space for us to give attention to each other, right? These basic elements of empathy, a space of listening, also some agreements, right, for how things work. So those basic elements, from my perspective, work for humans, right? Time and space, like the basic physics of empathy. And then the other thing I would say is, of course, for any group you're working with, we're still are encouraging you use this process, but know your group. I love what Kelly did. Bring hip hop beats for hip hop, word artists. What's an important question, but where's a setting, and also how you bring people to the table, right? So there's a lot of listening and attentiveness there. From my perspective, I haven't really dwelled a lot on the specific distinct cultural differences because I go for what works for the most people, right? And then how do you, tailor that? That's your work and your investment in, your audience or the people that I would listen to them. And so I want to just pause there, see if there's any, the trainers have any other thoughts, just for an initial response to that question. Any other? Okay. All right. Let's see here. Some folks are afraid of people getting aggressive, what if people not listening, gets out of hand, or you're working with your family and families have pretty deep, long-lasting conflicts. That's why families are maybe some of the largest challenges. And so, how do you work with that? Well, number one is get support. From my initial response there. We just have another minute or two here, but get support. Each of us has different capacity and comfort with levels of intensity, right? And so when I prepare to lead a group, I want to have 2 or 3 people that I can get a lot of empathy from and help my nervous system calm down and understand why I'm so scared and what I can do about it, and just to hear me out. So empathy calms me down. So you want to receive a lot of empathy before, being able to support it in others. Also, just really honor and respect the strong agreements for this process as a facilitator. Be really clear about that. But also, you can invite people to watch a video ahead of time, so folks are prepared when they arrive. Just kind of, it's like preparation for everybody. Helps everybody settle down, especially if it might be intense. And I've also heard Lou say that when dealing with conflict, the empathy circle is not a conflict resolution system. It's not. It's different. Empathy circle is for deep listening and connection, mutual connection. Conflict resolution has a couple other steps to it, right? Like making agreements based out of shared needs. So those are a couple of thoughts there. A lot of support, encouragement. Let me see here. When you're first starting out, how long should it be? How many people? What types of family and friends? I heard your questions, Joni. So, my initial thoughts is a small group, 3, 4, 5 people, maybe at the most. A simple topic that folks are interested in, but it's not like, super intense. And I would invite people that are interested, that get it. You don't have to convince them too much, to go with who's available, those are a couple initial thoughts there. We have another minute, maybe 2 at the most here. Trainers, would you add anything, or Joni, any other questions around just getting started? Anything at all? Yeah, go ahead.
I would just quickly add about conflict resolution. Actually, a lot of conflict can get worked out through the empathy circle, but if you can add other layers to it, but it is sort of the foundation for conflict resolution, but you would add a few layers to sort of strengthen it. So I would just add that part.
Thank you, Edwin. Yeah, empathy and a mutual understanding is at the heart.
You should go, Bill.
Yeah, go, Bill.
Yeah, just to add on to what Edwin said a little bit. So one of the things you do when you have a real serious situation or conflict where both sides don't feel heard or want to engage with the other is that you can have a pre-circle. So you act as the glue. You listen to one side until they trust you and feel heard, and then the other side to trust you and feel heard, and then to see whether you can carry that over. That's it.
Yeah, and Susan, go ahead.
I thought I would tell you that the major contract lawyers at Bechtel, the big industrial engineering company, said that they want to understand all about the other side as they were trying to work out a contentious conflict, and to see what was influencing those people and who were their constituents. And the more they listened, the better they could frame what they wanted to say. And they said listening was 1, 2, 3 on their list.
Thank you, Susan. Really appreciate that. I want to hand it over to Kelly to prepare us for our breakout sessions today. I want to thank you all for your questions. Please keep track of your questions and add them to our feedback form when you get that link, so we can track those and keep responding to them. And so, Kelly, it's all yours.
Cool, thanks. So now we're going to be going into the breakout rooms. So this week, what we're going to be doing is practicing the how-to introduction part of facilitating a circle. And then we're also, each person is going to get a chance to practice facilitating the circle as well. So that's going to be like the running the timer, telling people when their time is up, encouraging people, just, well, we all know the rules, so it'll go real well, I promise. Yeah, I think that pretty much gets us ready to go. Are the breakout rooms? I think that's it, right?
Yeah, they're ready. I did post the topic. We do have the topic of what are your thoughts and concerns about being an empathy circle facilitator, or as usual, what's alive for you, and you get 3-minute turns. So the facilitators will help set that up. So we've got 4 groups. Let's see, Susan has one, Bill another, Timothy another, and then Kelly, there'll be just 2 participants, and I'll be in there with you as well. So it was just, these are the number of participants. So we have an hour and a half, and see you back in an hour and a half. I think that's it. Yep. And here we go. And Kelly, your group stays here.
Cool. Okay.
You can readjust in terms of just 2 participants, unless you want to be a participant as well. So kind of model it too. So you get half an hour, so it's kind of up to you what you want to do.
I'm fine. You mean like, I mean, I'm fine either way. Were you going to be the, did you want me to?
I'm here to observe. You're the guy. Okay. You're it.
Okay. I'm trying to set my big timer, but okay. So welcome everyone. So I was thinking that the way we would do it would be to first go through our introduction process, and then we'll do like a debrief and kind of give some feedback, each of us giving our feedback and getting feedback. And then once we feel good about that, we'll transition to each person having their time to facilitate the process. So I guess I could go first, unless anyone wants to go first. You feel really excited about, no, I'm not seeing a lot of, okay. Let me just scroll here. Okay. Well, then I'll go first. So I'll just give kind of the way that I give a little introduction when I start an empathy circle. And I guess as just to give you my view on it, I don't always do like exactly the same thing. I don't have like a script really, but kind of depends a little bit on who's doing it and how much they know about it. So like if they've seen the video in advance, if you've sent them a video, like that kind of might make a difference. But yeah, so I'll start now. Welcome to the Empathy Circle. So today we're going to be doing the Empathy Circle practice. And it's a pretty simple practice. The way it works is that at any given time, there's an active speaker and an active listener. And what happens is the active speaker will say a few things, which will be based on the prompt or whatever else they might want to talk about. They'll say a few things and then they'll pause. And then the active listener is going to reflect what the active speaker says. And in that reflection, the active listener is going to focus on saying like what they've sensed to be the essence of what they heard. So what they're not going to say are judgments or evaluations or assessments about what they're hearing. You really want to try to just give back what you are hearing. And you're welcome to use your own words, but you're also welcome to repeat the words, whatever it makes it easy for you to return what you're hearing. Just work with that. And so that will be timed. So once the active speaker's time is up, I will hold up my sign. And what happens when I hold up the sign is that the turn ends when the active listener finishes the last reflection. So when I hold up the sign, it doesn't interrupt anything. We keep going until the end of whatever cycle we're in. So if the speaker is speaking, they'll finish their thought and then the reflector finishes. If the reflector is still reflecting or the listener is still reflecting, they'll finish their reflection. And every turn will end when the speaker has their last thing reflected to them and they feel it's been reflected appropriately. And they will usually say like, I feel heard, or yes, like I feel heard is a good way to verbally like close the term. Now, if they don't feel heard at that last time or at any time, the active speaker will or is free to make corrections or clarify, elaborate. Really, the focus is in each cycle for the speaker to feel heard. That's the purpose. So if you're the speaker, you don't feel heard, go back into it. Say, oh, actually, what I meant, this is, maybe I didn't communicate correctly, or maybe we're not connecting. Here's what I meant to say, or, at your discretion, you can do that. And so, cut. Did anyone, or I guess that was mine. Let's go around and everyone can do theirs, and then we'll we'll debrief, and then we can exchange feedback and see how we feel about it. So now someone surely is ready to volunteer. Nice. Okay. It's all you, Wayne, when you're ready.
Okay. First of all, welcome to the Empathy Circle. So we've got 4 in our group at the moment. So when we do an Empathy Circle, it's all about giving one person the opportunity to speak, another person an opportunity to listen and reflect what is said. The other 2 people at that point, they're just passive listeners. And what they do is they don't speak in any way. Now we're all going to have turns at doing that. So what happens first of all is if I go through the different roles, so the first person who is the active speaker, they will talk about either the topic or anything that's front of mind for them. They try not to talk for too long. It might only be 30 seconds or so, or even less, because once I've said their little piece, the active or the responder, what they do is they listen to what has been said and they repeat it back to the group. They can either use their own words or the words that the active speaker has said, but really it's to get the essence of what has been said and the feelings that go with it. Once the active speaker feels as though that they have been heard and it was accurate, they can then start again and say their next deeper thoughts and feelings. If they don't feel as though that it was accurate, they can correct the responder. That process backwards and forwards goes on for a set amount of time. It might be 3 minutes, it might be 5 minutes, and the facilitator of the circle holds up a timer or gives an indication that the time's up, and that time finishes when the responder has responded to the last sharing of the active speaker. What happens then is that the active speaker then transfers the speaking to the active listener and the responder, and then the responder chooses somebody else in the group. And at that point, they try and choose somebody that hasn't had a turn so that it spreads around. And at that point, the active speaker then becomes a passive listener. So what I normally do with a group of kids when I'm working with students is I try and just give a very brief, probably about a 30-second or a minute introduction, but then have a practice round and actually give, I say, we're just going to have a practice round, and they might have 2 turns at speaking each. We swap it around so that everybody has a turn. And then I give them more instructions whilst they're doing the practice round. Because as you know, students' attention span sometimes is that of a fish. So I found with students especially, it's better for them to actually learn it while they're doing it. And that's worked very well. So
I think that's good for adults too. I'd really like to hear your 30-second version if that you mentioned, the short version that you would give before an example.
Okay, well, all I would really say is we're going to do an active circle now, and in the active circle, we're all going to have turns at different roles. And then I would launch into, okay, you're going to be and then basically it's a participatory circle. Yeah. And I explain it while they're doing it. Because of course, what actually happens is one kid will talk for too long, And at that point, I'll say, oh, now you might want to wait there. Do you think that other person's going to be able to listen and respond to all of that? So rather than saying what not to do, I let them experience it first.
Yeah. So I think that's a good insight. Okay, Savannah, would you like to give your introduction?
Yes. So, hello everyone. Today we're going to be working on an empathy circle, and basically what that is listen.
We're not hearing you very well. Is it possible to up your microphone or?
Is that better?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
really good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. So I'll just start over. Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be participating in an empathy circle. And basically what that means is we're going to have someone, a group of people that will be listening to one another in the form of turns. So we have 4 different roles that you can partake in, and one would be the facilitator, which would be me. And then we'd also have an active listener, an active speaker, and then a passive listener. So the active speaker is going to be the person that's going to speak first. They're going to explain anything that may be on their mind, maybe on a prompt. And then the active listener is going to repeat back what they say, they're going to repeat back what they say after the speaker speaks for a certain amount of time. And that may just be like 30 seconds. Not too long, so that the active listener can get everything that the speaker is saying. We'll be taking turns, so the active speaker will pick the listener who they want to listen to, and then after that, the active listener then becomes the active speaker, and they can pick the next person to listen. Yeah, that's all I have. I'm very new at this, so I don't really know a lot.
That's okay. Yeah, this is just practice. You're never like, it's always it's just having this confidence to do it when you're in the circle. That's all that really matters, right? Because kind of like what Wayne was saying is when we're doing it, everyone learns by doing anyways. So yeah. Sorry, your volume dropped out again.
I feel like it's easier for everyone to like just do it than to like explain it. So I feel like if I actually did it, I would do kind of what Wayne was saying and like have everyone participate as you're going along. So
yeah, I think that's really a great option, as long as you have the confidence to interrupt and adjust when you need to do those things. Then I think that's a great way to do it. Edwin, you're just observing, right?
Oh, I can comment or whatever.
Okay.
What did you mean?
Well, like you're not going to take a turn or?
Oh, no, not.
Okay.
Just for time wise, we only have 30 minutes for each person. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just do a little debrief. Maybe for each of us, we can say how we felt about our introduction, and then each of the other people in the group can give their feedback, some positive points, some points of improvement. And I guess I can go first. I thought mine was okay. I realized that I forgot to mention the passive listener role, which is kind of like, oh, I missed that. But yeah, I felt okay about giving it. I don't know, does anyone have any reflections or feedback they want to say about mine? Go for it.
I'll actually link both of yours into after I explain my one. I don't think mine was actually that good. I tend to think while I'm talking, and therefore I was all over the place a little bit. But that's probably because when the empathy circles that I've done have been with students. So I've always done it very brief intro, and then just said to them, okay, we're just going to have a practice round. So therefore, I haven't had to think too much, because the things that I've had to think about have arisen during the practice round. It works okay when you're face to face. I don't know whether that method would work as well in a Zoom session by doing that participatory sort of learning as you go, because you've sort of got to be after not so much butt in, but sort of say, oh, that sort of thing. I thought you were a little bit like me, Kelly, sort of thinking as you were going. and thinking, oh, I need to say that. Oh, I need to say that. But that's just experience. So Savannah, I thought you were really clear on what you did. Obviously, you got to a point and went, oh, okay, I've got the rest. But I found it really clear. You were really clear in your instructions as you were going. So
Thanks.
Room for improvement for me.
Okay. Nice. Edwin.
Oh, just a comment. In terms of, there are two things. One, there is a PDF. You can always just have that handy, print it out, and give it to everyone too. And you just kind of can go down and hit all the bullet points. So there's kind of like preparing people beforehand. You can kind of gauge, oh, have you all seen this? So have you seen the video? Have you seen the PDF? Here's a copy of it. So that can kind of prepare them beforehand, and then you can review it if you want, or you can kind of internalize it. The other thing is in terms of terms, what happened, somebody, I think Kelly started with active speaker. You can just say, I think that adds an extra word, right? Active speaker, there's only one speaker. So you can just say the speaker. There was something about passive listener. I kind of like silent listener. Passive sounds, I mean, just in terms of framing, it's like, oh, you're passive, like you're just a silent listener and you'll get a chance to be the active listener. So those are just some, conventions I think kind of help. And it's in the list too. So those are some. And then there was another part about, speak for 30 seconds. Another idea is just you say, oh, just share an idea or two. So you have the concept of, it's not just a time, but it's like a little block of an idea. So those are just some little, kind of suggestions.
Yeah,
but
that's
otherwise,
great.
the part about learn by doing, I'm all for that. It's like I always say, yeah, we'll just do it, and you'll kind of learn by doing. So I think a couple of people mentioned that, which I think is really good.
Yeah. Savannah, you unmuted. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, like,
Oh, you might have to do that each time.
is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I was just gonna say that as I do like speak as I think, so like I wasn't sure what I already said and what I needed to say. So I feel like it would be better if, like, writing it down or using that PDF document that he had just to go over it, because it's like, what did I already say? What did I not say already? Did I cover everything? So just kind of having either like a PowerPoint or just like going as, like, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great reflection. I had a similar reflection, but apparently I failed to follow up on it because I never did write my own script or anything. But I think Edwin's idea with the PDF, just always keeping that around and just look at it, I think that's a great idea. And yeah, I did, well, since it sounds like we all kind of debriefed a little bit on our own, I just wanted to give a little bit of feedback. Wayne, I thought it was I really liked your short version, and I think it probably would work better than you think, because I've never been in an empathy circle on Zoom where people didn't figure it out, right? So it always has worked. So I think maybe that's a good lesson for all of us. And I like the way that you put it. And then Savannah, I also really liked how you started it by actually saying, this is, I forgot, like, we're gonna go in turns, we're gonna take turns listening. Like, you described the actual broad process, which I think is a great way to frame it. You get a little, I think I kind of got a little lost in the details. And it's like, if you start off by just saying, oh, we're going to be taking turns listening, that's the basic concept. And it's like everything else is the details. So yeah, I want to get our time to do the facilitation. So
can I just mention one more kind of aspect? Is one of the core parts of the circle is for the speaker to feel heard to their satisfaction. So you kind of grounded, like, you will be heard to your satisfaction. You might not be heard like everything that you've said, but to where you feel satisfied. So that can also really help ground the frame that what we're hearing. Yeah, what we're doing.
Right. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, I like that as a point to always kind of focus on. So yeah, does anyone else have anything before we switch gears? Wayne.
This is a question for everybody. One thing I've found is I've got a I still haven't answered the question myself yet, but the difference between all the learnings that I've had, the likes of the when you're sitting there and you're not quite listening, you realize how much you've got to listen, is how much you want to tell the participants of those learnings or things that are going to happen versus just running with it and then allowing them to discover that themselves. It's sort of, when I've been with a group of students, you can see the light bulb go on for one student, and yeah, I just tend to find it's a little bit of a mismatch as to when they get it. And sometimes when I see one student get it and talk for, instead of 2 ideas, they use 8, and then they get it, oh, the other person didn't hear me. I tend to stop them when they get that aha moment and then get them to share that aha moment with everybody else. So it's sort of breaking in and breaking out of an empathy circle for the first session anyway, until they've got the nuts and bolts of it. So I don't know whether it's good to do it that way or best to keep the integrity of the empathy circle going.
Edwin's got something to say.
I try to go for the integrity of the circle so that it doesn't get too didactic, because the part of the circle is there's a sense of equality. Like you can step in as the teacher, then you're kind of into that teacher role. And we're really trying to foster that. I know it's like, oh, they're learning kind of at their own pace, and I could be saying something, but you can also say it when it's your turn to speak, right? Don't break the circle. It's like when it's your turn to speak, you can say any kind of didactic learning stuff and you get a reflection on it. So it kind of holds the practice, the structure. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah.
I think that's a great, I've never thought to do that, but even without having ever thought to do that, my policy is like interrupt as little. It's only when I feel that there's really just the person's not getting heard. If what's happening is making it so the person, if you can tell that they're just being like, oh yeah, okay, I feel, like that's when I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And anything else, I try to give people time to, because we're aware, like people are going to pick it up at a different pace. And so yeah, it's a judgment call. It's always kind of a judgment call, but all right. So we're each going to take time facilitating. And so, yeah, who wants to go first? Basically, at this section, we're just going to be running the timer and holding up your sign and making sure we all take our turns. So just Wayne or Savannah, one of you can go first. I'll pick someone.
I can go first.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, if you, I guess if you have we're gonna do 3-minute turns, and it's up to you. I like to use a timer, because that way I don't have to use my phone, and you can let the sound play and we'll hear the beep, or you can hold up a sign and keep yourself muted. It's kind of up to you to see what feels right to you, but 3-minute turns and you're in charge.
All right, so I'm just going to use a timer, and then when you hear the timer go off, then you know that your turn will be over and you can finish your statement, and the active listener can finish the retelling of what the speaker said. Do I need to re-explain how it works, or okay? Would anyone like to speak first of what is alive in you, what they want to talk about?
We had a topic, just
yeah.
Oh, we
I
did
always
have a
put that
topic.
in. Yeah, that was
Thanks,
we're all
Edwin,
using
yeah.
the same topic.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry about that. Okay, so it's in the chat, right? So what are your thoughts about and concerns about being an empathy circle a facilitator. So that is our topic to start. They would like to be an active speaker.
Yeah, I'll start off with the active speaker. I think I don't actually have any concerns because the empathy circle itself.
So Savannah, one thing that you need to be doing is making sure that the active speaker picks a listener before they start talking. So that will happen sometime. Then you're on duty.
Got it. So go ahead and pick a listener.
Okay. I'll pick. I'd like to pick Kelly as my my listener.
I'm listening.
Okay. So I haven't got any worries about facilitating empathy circles because I think it's just a learning process all the way through, and I only tend to get worries when I don't feel as though it's a nice environment to be learning, and I think empathy circles creates that supportive environment.
Yeah, so I'm hearing that you're pretty much not worried about this process of becoming an empathy circle facilitator because you see it as a learning process, and as long as the environment of learning is positive, then that's all you need to feel good about it.
Yeah. So I guess as the facilitator in the first place, I guess setting up that expectation of everybody that, hey, we're going to be kind to each other. By doing that, you make it a kind environment for yourself.
Right. So you're noticing that the empathy circling facilitation process kind of also is what it adds to making it a kind environment.
What else about empathy circles? I was just thinking before, actually, when we talked about having the script, I just thought about having a diagram to share in the screen share at the beginning that sort of might diagrammatically show an empathy circle. But that's something I might trial with a group of students, so I might not.
Yeah, so you're also thinking about how to present the process to students, and you think a diagram might be worth trying.
Yeah. No, I actually feel fully heard at the moment.
Yep.
Great.
So, you still have 30 seconds left, so if you wanted to say anything else, or if you good and you feel heard, then we can move on.
No, I feel fully heard.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Kelly, do you want to pick an active listener?
Yes. Savannah, will you be my listener?
Yes.
Okay, so
Right.
Thank you. What are my, so I guess I'm in a sort of like, I'm in the full flow of trying to get empathy circles happening, and I've been working with different groups of people for a while since I started doing empathy circles. So I guess my sort of concern has to do with how to really keep it going and keep it in my schedule and keep people who keep bringing people in to do it from my different social spheres, I guess. I'll pause there.
So, you have worked with a bunch of different people in groups, and your concern is how to keep that going and engaging all the different people that you talk with and making room for it in like your daily life.
Yeah. Yeah, I have, like, for example, I got a few of my college friends together and to do it, and everyone really liked it, and they were like, let's do it again. and then it becomes, so then it's like that kind of happens frequently, and then it's like just all these kind of distributed groups of people who are like vaguely interested in doing it on a regular basis, and then I just kind of by default become like this administrator of all these different little clubs I started, I guess, you know. And it always kind of feels like it's like my thing because I'm the one, you know, like they don't ever take ownership of it because I'm the one who's the facilitator who like brought it into the group or whatever, you know.
So you've created a whole bunch of different empathy circles with your college friends, and they all want to participate in it, but none of them really want to actively hold their own. And so you kind of feel like all that weight is on you, that you have to facilitate it. Otherwise, you won't be able to do that with all the people that you've invited.
So in Hear You Reflect, I didn't exactly say it that way, but so it's not that they don't want to, but it's just that they aren't, because I'm the one, it's like I have the ownership of it. But hearing you reflect it makes me realize that if I asked someone else, if I just said, hey, like, will you take ownership of having us meet every month or whatever, then they probably would. It's just that they all probably feel like this is my thing, you know? Oh, we lost you. There you go. Oh.
Feel that if you ask someone, then they probably would do it, but they think that you started it, so you want to do it, and that it's kind of your role or your place or your job to do it. And that maybe if you ask someone, then they would want to do it and accept that role as well. Did I get that?
Yeah. So yeah, thanks. I feel heard. Thank you.
So is it just us three or
Edwin? You kind of drop out like when you start to talk.
Yeah.
And it kind of seems maybe start off by like talking really loud to wake up the microphone or something. That might, I don't know.
So is it just us three? Is that good?
No, I'm part of it.
Okay. So then would you be my
yes,
listener?
listening?
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I am super new at this, so I'm very nervous about facilitating because I don't necessarily know like when to do things and when not to do things, and I don't want to be like too controlling, I guess.
So you're feeling nervous about the facilitation because you're very new to this, and you don't want to be sort of controlling about it. So.
I think that to get more confident in it, I need to have more experience with it, and I haven't had a lot of experience with it, so I kind of lack confidence because it's like, oh, I'm not totally sure what I'm doing, so how can I tell other people what to do when I'm not fully sure myself?
So you just haven't had a lot of experience, so it's hard for you to kind of tell other people about, you know, what to do because you haven't had a lot of experience yourself. So, you know, you just have more experience, so you get better at it.
Basically all I have, so I feel heard. Thank you.
Okay, feel fully heard. Speak to Wayne.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm listening.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of building on what Kelly said about engagement, you know, how to keep it engaging is a question I think about too. And I think that might be topics. I do think about how do we kind of keep people engaged.
Yeah, what I heard you say, Edwin, was that you sort of followed on from what Kelly was saying about how to keep people engaged, and just thinking around that topic.
Yeah, and part of it I think is the topics, you know, to have subjects that are sort of engaging, and actually there was a couple of people were working on that, how to create better topics, you know, so we had that on the email list. So I do think, yeah, having kind of different topics could be really helpful.
Yeah, and one of the things that you talked about was having topics, and that's been part of the emails, instructions and things like that, is creating interesting topics, which tends to keep that interest and engagement going.
Yeah, and one topic is conflict resolution, right? It's like everybody's got conflict, and if you can kind of bring in that aspect of conflict, that engages people too. Everybody, especially in their family, everybody's got family issues, so that can be a topic.
And one topic you think is especially engaging is conflict. And as you mentioned, everybody tends to have conflict, and families sort of made up of conflict. So that's an engaging topic.
And the other is kind of this larger vision of a culture of empathy, right? It's like getting sort of a social movement that we want to make this cultural change to, raise the level of empathy. And so that you're not just doing it, oh, it's nice, I can get feeling heard, but hey, we really need a bigger cultural shift. So you're putting energy into kind of making that cultural shift, because things are pretty dysfunctional in at least our country, politically and socially, it's getting kind of worse. And I think empathy is sort of the solution to that.
Yeah, and what I heard you sort of talking about there was that at one level it's sort of about the empathy within a small group, but we should really look outside that and say that we want to create that's going to create a culture of empathy. And in fact, we should be promoting a culture of empathy, because the world's not in a good place, and empathy is if we can roll it out to the rest of the world, then that's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, my sense is that it's like the number one sort of value that if we can bring that out into the world, it's just going to create more well-being. So somehow to inspire people to say, oh, this is more than about just me getting heard, but I'm kind of I'm really transforming society, improving the well-being. So it's having that motivation, kind of a bigger vision is a way of engaging, for creating engagement.
So what I heard is an even deeper passion of yours, that it's about taking the individual or the small group and creating that at a more global scale, because that's what's going to make the big difference in the world.
Yes, that's what I just think in terms of thoughts about the circle and the facilitation, that your motivation for facilitating is, hey, I'm just going to create greater well-being for all of society and the world, basically. So is a sort of is one motivation to somehow to get that message out there.
Yeah, so you're really quite passionate about the concept of taking it outside. We're just doing the empathy circles for us. We want that message or you want that message to go wider, or not so much you, but you want the people who are participating to have a feeling of taking that message out to the world.
Yeah, and then the other part was is how to make it a really easy to learn process, so that for doing the training and so forth, that it can be easily learned. So that what we're doing here is just really easy, so that Savannah doesn't feel so much anxiety about it, or whoever, so it's just easy to learn the process and the training.
Yeah, and the other thing you want to develop to try and do is to make it easier. So and you mentioned Savannah, it can develop the process of creating an empathy circle in an easy manner, that people don't feel nervous, and that it can be easily developed.
Yeah, and I'm talking a lot here because I'm kind of testing Savannah if she's gonna interrupt with. I give you a little challenge.
Well, I don't think the words. I've tried, but I think the sound isn't working. Yeah.
A little sign helps.
I was just about to do that too.
Okay, I feel fully heard. Just a little test on.
Yeah, you can also do that.
Yeah, I was getting there. I was like I said, confidence. I more time, more practice.
She's got all different kinds. Yeah. We can discuss that kind of in like the debrief, but there's definitely ways you can make it feel like less friction-y to do that. But yeah, so you're on timeout, and Savannah, you're back to you.
Okay. So I'm not really sure. So are we still talking about the same thing or what?
Oh yeah, I mean, I just meant you're back to facilitating. So we
Yeah.
just had Edwin was the speaker, and I interrupted, so I was passing it back to you to get us back on course. But yeah, the topic stays the same for the whole circle.
Okay. So yeah, I guess Wayne, go ahead and take a listener.
Oh, your audio is really hard to hear you. Yeah, it's like I don't know what it is. It's something I need to fix.
So Wayne,
There we
you
go.
can go ahead and pick a listener.
Okay, I'll choose you, Savannah. Would you like to be my listener?
Yes, of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
I found that really fascinating what Edwin was talking about, and I want to sort of draw that from another perspective as well, and that is I come from a research background, researching empathy, and I think I've mentioned it before, but empathy there's a lot of research around about the benefits of empathy, both on a local and a global scale. So I'll pause there.
Really inspired by what Edwin was saying, and that you kind of see it more based of like a research aspect of it, and seeing empathy being that way, and that it can really impact like everyone, like globally and everything like that.
Yeah, so given that there's so much research around about the benefit of empathy, I don't think we need to spend much more work on that, because that has become part of the culture of the media. Media and politics is talking a lot about empathy. What they're not talking a lot about is how do we develop basic empathic skills. And that's where I think Empathy Circles is sitting there ready to be rolled out.
So you're saying that there isn't really much research that needs to be done about empathy anymore, because a lot of people have already been talking about it, like in the media and the news and all of that. And I think you said that you think that the issue more is not of what empathy is, but how do we do it? How do we be empathetic to others? And I think using empathy circles will help that. And just how do we get a lot of people to start doing that?
Yeah, so what I'd be interested in, and what's sort of lighting my fire at the moment is gaining, from a researcher perspective, gaining the experience of empathy circles, and then perhaps coming back through and saying, okay, Edwin, how can we have a look at some of the researchers around the place to engage a little bit more of that, but also look at the strategies, and I think Edwin's already got some of them by getting some politicians to do some empathy circles. We've already got international empathy circles going.
So you're just saying that using the experience from the empathy circles, you can have people start like using that like in their daily lives, and having like other people like politicians start using them, so that people in general will just be more aware of it, and start like actually acting on what they've learned in the empathy circles. So yeah, the time is up. So yeah. Was that good?
Okay, I feel fully heard.
Okay, perfect. I don't really have anything to speak on for myself, so I'm gonna go ahead and pass over my turn. So yeah, would anyone like to be a speaker?
Are you sure you don't have anything you want to say?
Yeah, no, I can't think of anything.
I've never I don't know if that's, Edwin, what do I do?
Okay, well, here, what you can do, if you select someone to speak to, Savannah, and you say, hey, I have nothing else to say. I can't think of anything to say. And they'll reflect back, hey, you don't have anything to say. And then you say, I feel fully heard. And that stays within the process. So that's just a tip.
Glad Edwin's here.
Yeah. So Kelly, would you like to listen to me?
Yes.
All right. So I don't really have anything else to speak on. I have enjoyed listening to what you all are saying, and it's brought a lot of insight to me. But other than that, I don't have anything.
Gotcha. So yeah, I'm hearing that you're interested in what is being discussed, and you're finding it insightful, but you don't have anything that you feel like sharing right now. Cool. Thank you. Okay. Edwin, will you be my listener then?
Listening.
So yeah, one thing that was coming up in hearing some of this discussion is the use, or so yeah, the way that there's this awareness that people don't like have a lot of empathy. But to me, there's a more basic thing where like people don't fully understand what empathy means. And I think that is related to this general vagueness about emotional intelligence, or like, what does it mean to be in touch with your emotions, or something like that. And I'll pause.
So around the issue of empathy is that there's sort of a vagueness in terms of what it really means, and around emotional intelligence, there's just sort of this general vagueness about what we're even talking about.
Yeah. And I think what happens is that people who, because of how polarized so many issues are, and people get really pulled into conflict thinking, when people hear something they don't understand, they just kind of evaluate it based on the kinds of people that they judge to be talking about it. So you have a lot of people who don't know what all these, people who are talking about emotional intelligence mean, and they think these people are basically people they disagree with. And it creates this kind of resistance to it's like, oh, there's kind of this wishy-washy thing of emotional intelligence, almost like it's like this fanciful thing. But what's great about this process, I think, is that it's like there's nothing special, it's just doing a process. That's all there is to it. And I think most emotional intelligence, you can just learn, do these things, communicate in this way. That is all there is to it, right? And I'll pause with that.
Yeah, so talking about emotional intelligence, it gets all wishy-washy, and then people, they sort of politicize it. It's like, oh, it's more the liberals talking about this, so it must be a liberal thing, and they sort of judge it. And with the empathy circle, it's just a practice and a process. So it's sort of like concrete. You just kind of do it, and it maybe has more clarity or something to it.
Yeah, and it eliminates that kind of I was trying to think of like examples, and I was thinking like manners. Like people want people to know, like, what are good manners? Well, if you just walked around talking about people having good manners, that might just, people might be like, oh, like, you're just like, you're kind of crazy. But if you're like, oh, like, say please and thank you, like, it's like a specific thing. There's nothing special about having good manners. It's just knowing how to behave, how to communicate. And I was also, as sort of a funny way to think about it, if you taught someone, if you said like, hey, let's have like a freedom circle, but you did the same practice, there's no difference. It doesn't matter if you call it emotional competency or empathy. If you can do this, and if you can communicate with people in this way, like, that's all there is to it. And I think if people could realize that they're getting hung up on the labels, and I've gotten hung up on the labels too. Yeah, I'll pause.
Yeah, so it's really about getting hung up on labels. You can, instead of calling it an empathy circle, you could call it a freedom circle, and that might appeal to a different group. For example, they say. So it's really about that specificity of an action that takes out of sort of the philosophical wishy-washy. Just do this action, and So it has a sense of clarity or something to it, practicality.
Yep. Thank you. I feel heard. And that was also your the end. That was my timer, if you heard it, for the end of your facilitation section, Savannah.
Okay.
So thank you very much for doing that. Yeah, let's go hop right to Wayne, and then at the end we can just give any kind of feedback or talk about what worked, what we think about that. So let's have Wayne hop in, but we'll keep the circle where it is. So over to you.
Okay. What I'd like to first of all is invite somebody who would like to be the speaker. Does anybody like to be the speaker as part of this circle? Otherwise, I'll choose Edwin. And if you could, Edwin, if you could choose a listener, and then you'll have around about 3 minutes, and I've got a timer, and I'll just, if you don't hear the timer going beep beep on my one, I'll just hold up my timer. It's not a timer at all, but
hold up your club.
I'll make it clubs. So yes, over to you, Edwin.
Okay, Savannah, can I speak to you? So yeah, I really appreciate what Kelly was saying about the practicality of the empathy circle. It's just a practical structure that it's like you just kind of do it, and all the empathy, the benefits or the practicality of it just sort of happens.
Yeah, so empathy circles are kind of practical. And because it's kind of something that we all do, but you just kind of, you do it. And then the reward of being heard and listening to others kind of is long lasting. And yeah.
Yeah, and it's like there is that that political aspect, right? You got the political left, political right. Conservatives are going to say, oh, this is empathy. They hear all the politicians talking about empathy. Nobody really says what it really means. It's all wishy-washy, but it's a liberal thing, right? And so we don't want nothing to do with that. But I find you get conservatives into an empathy circle, and it's like, oh, this is pretty good. I'm getting heard. I get heard to my satisfaction. So they're very supportive once they just do it.
So you say that it's kind of a political thing, and conservatives kind of see it as more as a left-leaning, a liberal kind of thing to do. But once they start participating in it, then they actually enjoy it and they feel heard and they like the process. But they have to take that initial step in participating first.
Yeah, and that's why I'd like to get the politicians to model it, like the Republicans and Democrats, so we can actually have a model of just everyone's getting heard. It takes the politics out of it, and everybody sort of appreciates it. Everybody wants to be heard and not be demeaned and put down. And so it has it is very practical in that sense.
So you said that you kind of wish that politicians would demonstrate this circle so that people can see that and see that everyone wants to be heard. And if that happens, then you think that it'll be like more beneficial and more practical, I guess.
Yeah, and it'll spread it too. I think that will really spread it, just to be seen as a practice that anyone can use. Yeah, I'll pause there.
So you said that if people see it, then it'll come more of like a practice, and more people will do it, and it's just kind of something that's done that people do.
Yeah, and there's a whole story I'd like to share that Barack Obama has said that he wanted to have empathy be one of the criteria for a Supreme Court justice, and all hell broke loose in Congress about it. Back when he was president, and we lost Kelly. Yeah, anyway, it was there's a whole story, but I'd like to share it when I have more time. So I think my time's probably about up.
Yeah, so you have a story about Barack Obama and how he wanted the next the Supreme Court justice to have empathy, and then that kind of set everyone into like an uproar, and they didn't really like that, even though it's kind of like a basic necessity for a person to be empathetic, and that you'd like to share more on that if you have the time.
Yeah, I feel heard. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. should we wait for Kelly or just keep going? Okay.
Yeah, we'll just keep going. One thing I've noticed, Savannah, is I think it's the distance you're away from the screen. When you're closer, it picks you up really well. So I think it's just the distance.
Okay, I'll try to get closer then. So I don't really have much to say earlier, but I guess I can come up with something.
So before you start, if you want to choose a listener, Savannah.
Yeah, Wayne, would you be my listener?
Yes, I'm listening.
Thank you. I'm just going to talk kind of how I like using the empathy circles. I kind of had my first experience last week when we did this because I was unable to participate before then because it conflicted with work. And I really enjoyed it. I'll stop there.
Okay, what I heard you say is that you'd actually quite like to talk about your experience of empathy circles because you were unable to participate because of work requirements last week. So yeah, you'd like to share your sort of personal experience.
Yeah. So I've always kind of struggled with the feeling of being heard. Like we've talked earlier, there's always conflict at home, and being able to be heard and have people listen to you without kind of asking for it was really nice. And I was able to get a lot of things that were on my chest that I would not necessarily be able to discuss while I'm at home.
What I'm picking up is that, or not only what I feel I've heard, but I've also feeling your feeling is that you've really enjoyed the opportunity to participate in Empathy Circle at a personal sort of family level because you haven't felt that heard previously without having to ask, and that's really enabled you to unload a few of the things that are deeper down.
And so then going off of that, I look forward to being able to become a facilitator so that I can create the same experience for other people, because I know there are other people who have similar experiences to me and possibly worse. And so if they have that opportunity to unload something or get something off of their chest that no one else would hear, I'd like to be able to be like a part of that.
Yeah. What I'm hearing now is your experience of empathy circles is not just coming from a functional, operational level. It's coming from a deep-centered release, I suppose, of the opportunity to be more heard. And the reason why you'd like to do the empathy training is because you want to enable that for other people as well.
That's it. I feel heard. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I missed that last little bit because of my...
That's all right. I just said that I felt heard and I was thanking you. So that's it.
Okay. And just finishing off, you felt that you were heard. I might do it straight back to you, Savannah. Yeah, really, really interesting. Oh, wait a minute, I better push start on myself. Otherwise I'll go too long. Obviously, I'm interested from the research perspective, but I'm also really interested in with the empathy itself. It's not just verbal communication, it's body language, it's facial expression, it's everything. And it's not just the fact of the communication, but it's feeling as somebody else has felt. And I really started feeling as you feel at the moment. I'm feeling a bit of pain from not being heard. I'll pause there.
Okay, so you were just saying how on the research of that you've done that empathy is not just listening, but also the the body language and the facial cues given when you're listening, as well as like the verbal cues of repeating back of what other people said. But you said that you have really felt similar to like what I've said, and that you felt the pain of like not being heard.
Yeah, probably not so much. I'm feeling the pain. I'm in a way feeling your pain. I can sense that this has been really, the empathy circles for you has been really opened up your confidence to by being heard. It's opening up your confidence and your perhaps even your feelings of self-worth.
So not the pain of you, but you feel the pain that I have, and that you think that the empathy circle has worked kind of deeper in me and kind of helped me in a way to like gain some like self-confidence and things, different aspects in that way.
Yeah, the other thing that the other feelings that I'm picking up are real feelings of vulnerability, and just feelings of that perhaps that because of that vulnerability, I'm picking up that may have been why maybe you haven't been heard.
So you said that you've been having feelings based off of what I said of me being vulnerable, and because of that, that I since I have not been vulnerable in the past, then I have not felt heard.
No. Oh.
Sorry, I got a little distracted with Kelly coming back in. I'm so sorry. I lost my train of thought. I was like, oh shoot, what did he say?
Can I pause things for a second, Edwin? Because I want to ask a question. Is that okay if I do that?
Okay, Kelly says it's okay.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I don't know what happened. Sorry, I dropped out, but I'm back. And yes, we can take a timeout. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, okay. One of the things there is that what you said, Savannah, was part of what I was picking up, and that deeper empathic engagement. How far can we go down? And I think this is one of the issues, is that I could keep drilling down what I was feeling, but it can. What is that the facilitator's role to butt in and say, oh no, you're going too far, Wayne, or whoever the participant is, because Savannah won't have the opportunity to do that because she is only responding. Do we need to say, how do we put a cap on the depth of interpretation?
So what I'm hearing, Wayne, is you're wondering, as you were reflecting back, you're sort of going deeper into reflecting back what Savannah's experience was, and you're wondering, like, at what point do you sort of put the cap on the reflection, the depth of the reflection?
Yeah, probably the whole thing is Savannah should be the one that's able to put the cap on it because it's her life experience, or if I was talking about Kelly, it would be his life experience or yours. But Savannah in the empathy circle, because Savannah was the responder, we haven't given her or any of the other participants the right to say, well back.
Yeah, so you're wondering who should be able to put the cap on how deep your reflection is of her experience, and because she's the person, she was just reflecting back, she can't put a cap on it. You're wondering if we should give permission to someone to that they can put a cap on how deeply you reflect back their experience, or your interpretation of their experience.
Yeah. So what I'll do now is I feel fully heard, and I want to hand it over to you, Edwin, and then you can carry on, and maybe some other people can talk about this aspect if they want to.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is you feel fully heard, and then it's my turn to speak. So I'll speak to Savannah if I can.
Yeah, that's fine. I am a little confused because
Yeah.
I thought we paused and
Yeah. So we did pause. And I think, I'm not sure if Edwin, if you intentionally were deciding to reflect the question and not answer it.
Yeah, so stepping out of the role, right? Stepping out of the circle. Wayne, you sort of broke up the circle process by asking, so I guess so that's what happens when we sort of break out, is if you can kind of stay within it, and when it came around your turn next time, to sort of hold the process instead of jumping out. So technically, you had spoke to Savannah, she had reflected, now it would be her turn to speak, right? If we're holding the turns.
Yeah.
So
okay. Okay, so I feel fully heard. Over to you, Savannah.
Okay. Kelly, would you like to listen?
Yes.
Okay, so yes. So going off of what Wayne was saying, when he was kind of going in depth of his reflections of what I had said, it kind of made me realize that he was right in a way. I'll go ahead and stop there.
Yeah, so you're pointing out or reflecting that when Wayne was reflecting about, or when he was speaking about something you had said, it made you feel like he was onto something.
Yeah. So I had never thought of it in that way when he was saying that. I've always thought I've been kind of like an open person. I tell people a lot of things about myself and my life. But I've never really felt that way with certain things, especially like speaking about them at home. Stop there.
So you have a sense of yourself as being like really open, but this is making you realize there's certain things that you don't speak about, particularly when you're home.
Yeah. I'm open about a lot of things with my friends, but when I
your sound is not here.
All right.
That's good.
Works now?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a lot of things that I say to my friends, and I feel like they listen to me. But if I try to say similar things at home, I don't get the same response. So I feel like I pick and choose when I'm vulnerable. And I feel like the people that know me best are the people that like they're my friends and they like know the actual me.
So
sense?
you kind of have like a more vulnerable and like a less vulnerable parts of yourself, and it's more your friends who see the more vulnerable part, and more your family where you are kind of just having that less vulnerable part of yourself.
Yeah, and I think based off of what Wayne was saying, that made me realize that.
Sorry, we're not hearing you again.
How about now?
No.
Oh, a bit closer.
How about now?
That's good, yeah.
That good? Okay. So I think that Wayne saying that made me realize that I do have times when I'm vulnerable and times when I'm not, and that being able to say the things that I would not normally say to my family in an empathy circle has been really helpful for me.
So yeah, you're realizing you're having it pointed out to you that there's kind of these different levels of sharing, and you find it really helpful that in the empathy circle practice you can have this more vulnerable sharing, and you appreciate that.
I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Yeah, you feel fully heard, but I didn't hear you there, but I know what you said. Let's see, I'll see if Wayne would listen to me for a moment.
Yes, I'm listening.
Great. Yeah, well, I guess I'll just say sorry about dropping out. I don't know, my internet cut out, but then my iPad wouldn't reconnect to the internet, and I don't know. Here I am. Sorry, I missed whatever was happening while I was gone there.
Yeah. So what I heard you say is that you were sorry that your internet cut out, and then your iPad wouldn't or your computer wouldn't log back in again, and so you're sorry that you missed out on some of the stuff that we were talking about.
Yeah, and yeah, just to reflect on what I think I get some of the question that you were asking, so I'll try to address it a little bit, which is, yeah, my sense is that in empathy circling, like when you're speaking, you can kind of go into whatever is alive. And so sometimes that can mean kind of pushing into some kind of what feels like maybe a little bit edgy, or, you know, pushing the boundaries of what, if you start to talk about what other people are saying, you have to start to really feel into, you know, not overstepping. But I think that can be a place where some of that can happen.
Yeah. So what I heard you say is that that even though you didn't hear fully, you sort of got the idea of what we were talking about, and that is the structure of the empathy circle can sometimes create the opportunity to get into some issues that can sometimes get a little bit edgy.
Yeah, especially when it has to do with what you're hearing other people, like when you're reflecting about other people's shares. And so my thoughts are that, so in empathy circling, there's, you know, probably it's like best to avoid ever like giving advice or like explicitly trying to solve people's problems or something like that, or like diagnosis or stuff. And so I feel like those are kind of maybe the boundaries, but there is a place to reflect and like empathize in the sense of actually like, you know, going deeper into what you were sensing about what people are sharing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I heard you say there is that there's sort of two components to this. The first component is probably the line is you've got to be careful that when you're sensing and hearing somebody else, not making it a situation of counselling or providing advice or things like that. But on the other side, it is an environment where that sort of thing can start to develop. So that was time on that one.
Nice, yeah. If I can just close out my thought, what I was trying to get to is that there are other practices similar to empathy circling where people do go more in there's more of an agreement that we will go deeper into each other's shares, right? So I think there's a place for that, but it's probably something a little bit different.
Okay, so what I heard you say is there is another process that you can do that that is similar to empathy circles, but that needs to be an agreed part of the process.
Yep. Thank you. I feel heard.
Okay, Edwin, I wonder if you can be my my listener.
Listening.
Yeah, this has been really, really, once again, this layer of learning for me has been fantastic. And I think perhaps from my perspective, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out whether to preempt as a facilitator the depth at which you go. And I think you summarized it quite well, Kelly, by saying, look, if you're reflecting on somebody else's thoughts on what they've shared, then yeah, I'll leave it at that point.
So you're just noticing the layers of learning that you're having in the circle. I hear a real appreciation for that learning. And then you're reflecting on what you're thinking about what Kelly said about sort of the limits, like how to limit the what you're talking about sharing, I think.
Yeah. So on that, whether to actually preempt within the empathy circle and actually outline what you said, Kelly, about okay, within the empathy circle, don't get in, well, try not to get into providing advice to people, it's not a counseling session. There's an opportunity for that in other types of sessions, just to outline the expectations to begin with.
So you're thinking that perhaps you should, when you start the circle, is outline the expectations, say, you know, this is not counseling, you know, don't give advice and stuff like that. So set up some sort of expectations.
And I guess the other thing is the role of the facilitator is to actually come in if you feel as though somebody may be speaking being racist or being sexist or just stepping over the boundaries. It's the role of the facilitator to step in at that point and sort of refine things back or pull things back into the right direction.
So you feel that the role of the facilitator is to, if there's somebody saying racist things or sexist, that you kind of pull them back sort of into the what they can discuss or not.
Yeah. So so from my perspective, just to finish off on this one, is that each time I do one of these empathy circles, I just learn so much more. It's great.
Yeah, so really appreciating the learning that you're having just by doing this, and every time you're learning something, just really celebrating that.
That's my timer, so I feel fully heard.
Okay, Kelly, are we there at about time, I think, for a debrief on all this? We only have 15 minutes left.
Yep, that was my timer had just gone off as well for the turn. So yeah, that was a lot of interesting stuff, and a lot came up for the process, but there was also some things about the facilitation. So I guess if we want to do that same kind of format, sort of like Savannah, you went first, so maybe you could just share how you felt about it, maybe if you had any questions or things that you want feedback on.
I think when I was facilitating, it went all right. Obviously there's things I can improve on, like cutting people off when it's time. But overall, for my first time doing it, I think that it went well. But I mean, there's always room for improvement. So yeah. And then did you want me to reflect on anything else, or just on?
No, that sounds like a complete reflection. I think one thing that I was going to suggest you can look into is your mic thing. Your microphone issue might actually be a Zoom settings thing. So it might be that if you adjust, because there's some settings in Zoom that do like automatic noise canceling and stuff, and sometimes they're they like mute you, they do that sometimes. But yeah, it might be worth thinking about if you have like a headset with like that you can just plug in, or even maybe if you want to buy like a cheap little, over the ear headset that can just solve all your problems, even, so maybe just think about that, because when you're facilitating, that will be something where it'll make you kind of shake your confidence, and it's just better to know like, okay, my setup's good to go, and I don't have to worry about people telling me they can't hear me and stuff. So it's good to learn that, like in this setting. And yeah, I think the other thing I noticed with your facilitation is that it might be better, or it might be worth trying to either use your phone or a timer, but set it up so that when it goes off, it just automatically will hear it. Some people that works really well for, because then you don't have to assertively do it like, oh, everyone will hear it when it goes off. So I know that, so that's one thing you could think about. But the sign works great too, and you can just hold it up until you know everyone's seen it. Yeah, I think you did a good job. And yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know if anyone else has any feedback for Savannah.
I would just say that the audio, because if you're facilitating, it adds a level of stress. It's like how many times people said, oh, your audio's not working. And especially if you're dealing with conflict, it's like any level of stress in a conflict is just escalates, all the existing tension. So like an external mic or something, yeah, definitely got to get that fixed. That was it. Otherwise, it worked well. Yeah.
I think from my perspective, Savannah, you've got a very personable, softly spoken voice. So you tend to create an environment where people will probably want to share at a deeper level anyway. So that's a big positive. So yeah, that's the only thing, and obviously the noise things.
Yeah, that's great feedback. Thanks, Wayne. I appreciate that. All right, awesome. Well, yeah, thanks, Savannah. I appreciate you. I know the first time's like kind of the scariest, so I think you did a great job, and I'm sure, yeah, if you get like some friends, go do one this week, like I'm sure it'll be just a whole new world. All right, so Wayne, how did you feel about your facilitation?
Well, my facilitation is always challenged because I seem to always be thinking on two levels. I seem to be, I try and work as a practitioner, but I've always got this researcher's mind going on in the background, sort of self-reflecting on what I'm experiencing and what I'm seeing. So that's actually what happened when the issue came up for me as a practitioner of facilitation. Okay, what if somebody starts delving too deeply, or somebody starts saying something that's not appropriate within a session? And at that point, I had this conflict with myself as to, okay, do I continue this through the empathy circle? And I was a little bit worried about the fact of it takes a long time to get questions answered in an empathy circle because everybody's focused on what they're thinking, or whether I should break out of the empathy circle. So yeah, I'm still learning lots about empathy circles and researching empathy circles, but it's fantastic. I'm loving it.
Cool. So yeah, it sounds like most of your reflections are more about like the content, and you felt pretty good about the actual running this, like the actual facilitation mechanisms. You seemed like you felt okay about, and you didn't have any shyness just holding up your timer, and it seemed like that part of it you were good with.
Yeah, I do have to remember as a facilitator though that I'm running the session, so I have to be the practitioner, not the researcher. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think I mean, I know you've facilitated, you have experience doing facilitation, and so I felt like you had a pretty smooth facilitation process as far as the mechanics. There was like that confusing moment where we kind of paused, but then kind of didn't pause. But yeah, I thought it went well, and I mean, I think the thing where people want to, like, I've had in a circle I was facilitating where people want to do what you did and say like, hold on, like what is happening right now, and or like, can we time out and can I ask like a question about the process kind of thing. And I guess Edwin has I think his point in the moment was kind of like, it's always best to just stay in the structure if you can, and I think that's probably like the right way to go, because what I've experienced is like sometimes you might be able to take a time out, solve it, get back in, but sometimes it just turns into like a discursive conversation, and then it's hard to get people back on track. And then you get into this dynamic of people wanting to, oh, but let me just say, because we get into that greedy for time. Oh, I just want to say my thing I have in mind. So yeah, these kind of things, my experience so far is it's really just a judgment call, and you kind of have some, like the heuristic is, well, try to always just stay in the structure.
Yeah.
And the only other feedback or thought I had about what you brought up in one of your reflections is, I wonder about the idea of what you said, like, oh, well, if someone said something racist, I would have to intervene or something. part of me, I'm curious. I'm happy Edwin's here because I would be curious to know what he thinks. My sense is that really, as the facilitator, I'm never the judge of if something's too offensive or not, right? If the person is saying something that I perceive as racist and they're getting it reflected in a non-judgmental way and it's making them feel heard, that's like meeting their need in the moment of that's what they're here to do, is to feel heard. And in a way that can even be part of, you know, from my perspective, as like, it's good for people to not be racist. Having their racist comments reflected empathetically can be a process, part of the process of, you know, growing through that. And so I think, you know, we really want to be careful about enforcing based on content. And really, like, if you think that someone might be getting offended, maybe you can ask them like, oh, like, are you okay to continue? If there's some pause, be like, hey, like, you're the listener, are you okay to reflect what they just said? And if they say, okay, yeah, I can reflect it, then say, okay, well, like, go ahead and just reflect it, and we'll just continue the process. That can be powerful if you can just keep it happening. So that's my thought about it. And Edwin.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was really well said, Kelly. There's sort of two principles. One principle is the facilitator, we're just holding the process. It's like, you know, breaking out of the process. It's sort of a power thing too. Like, oh, I have the power to break out. So it's a power shift. And then the norms are all changed. Like, oh, well, if he can break out of the process, I can break out of the process. So it's really about holding the process as much as possible. So, for example, when you asked the question, I tried to just reflect back instead of answer. I don't know if you noticed that, Wayne.
Yeah.
So it's like stay within the empathic listening process. So that's kind of the one concept or principle, is let's just hold the practice. And when things come up, try to bring it back into the practice of the listening. So that's sort of one principle. The other principle, oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering then, would it be good if you think it's going to be an empathy circle that might bring out some of those attitudes, to sort of say at the beginning before you start the empathy circles, look, if somebody does say something that is a bit borderline, then you will have your opportunity to reflect your feelings on what they've said when it becomes your turn.
Yeah. So that's especially in a conflict, right? If you're sort of mediating a conflict, in a regular empathy circle, you know, you're spending time saying all this stuff too, which adds an extra load of, you know, cognitive load with it. But if you sense, hey, there's going to be a lot of conflict here, you might want to give those extra little steps to ground it. And I do it too. I said, you will be heard to your satisfaction. Just hear the other person, and then you will have your turn. We really want to hear what you have to say. So that's in the conflict. The other is, I'm pretty, you know, adamant, say whatever you want. You can be as judgmental, you can be as racist, you can be as demeaning, you can do whatever, and the person will reflect back. But then you in turn have to take whatever they give you too and reflect back. And usually if people start feeling heard, Kelly said it well, all that stuff, those are really like manifestations of anger, right? The judgment and frustration. Once that gets heard, it's like, oh, I don't need to do this, and it just settles and people start connecting. So it's like holding giving people the freedom to say whatever they want. And the other part I just wanted to address that Savannah talking about, I mean, I could really feel it, is that sense of, and I know it personally, about not feeling heard, you know, and just really wanting everyone to have that feeling of feeling heard. I mean, it was just so beautiful. I mean, just the awareness of that, and as a motivation for doing this practice is you want to support others and, you know, not having that pain of not feeling heard. So anyway, I just wanted to make a comment about that too. So that was kind of my 2 cents.
Yeah, awesome. I'm grateful that Edwin was here to give his thoughts on that, because yeah, I appreciated everything that you said, Edwin. I think we actually might have finished like a couple minutes early. 2 minutes left.
2 minutes,
Does anyone have anything that they want to share? Or I mean, we could take a a little quick break if you want to do that. Yeah, I'm seeing head nods. All right, so
IO break. Yeah, I could.
2 minutes.
Go to the
Those
restroom.
agree, we'll be back
Yeah.
in 2 minutes. Okay. You're here for the long haul, Wayne?
Yeah, might as well. I've only got half an hour left. Hey, that was really good, Kelly. That I just think this every time I come to one of these, especially with Edwin involved, it just adds another layer of understanding. And yeah, there was a real conflict of the, I guess it's the teacher in me that sort of says, okay, Wayne, as the teacher, you're the one that controls the environment. And if the environment becomes sexist, racist, bullying, anything else like that, then you have to manage that. But on the other side, the empathy circle it's therapeutic. If somebody is a racist, then you're not going to work through that if you're just going to shut them down from saying what they truly believe.
And that's, there's a few things that come up because it maybe depends on your situation, because if you have an obligation as a teacher, if there's like a policy that you have an obligation not to allow racist environments, right, then maybe there becomes a little bit of a tension. But I think in the purest sense of what the empathy circling is about, yeah, I mean, I think so. That's maybe something you have to kind of do the math on in the any given moment, right? Is you don't want to have this result in some kind of, you know, broad issue. But one thing I was meaning to say based on your reflection of your turn is you could have this concept of like a bucket, and just which could be just like a piece of paper and a pen next to you. And when you have this kind of distraction of like, oh, like this is like an interesting academic or research question, just like write it down as like you're just putting it in this bucket, and then you don't have to think about it because it's not part of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a good idea, actually.
Yeah, I do that with my work. I have this idea of like a bucket, and if I'm working and I'm like, oh, I really should, you know, order a pair of socks online, it's like, oh, we'll just put it in the bucket, and like there, now it's there.
I love all the ideas you have, Wayne. It's so much fun to just talk to you. It's just brilliant ideas that you come up with.
Yeah, I think it's excellent that that you're investing your time and effort into exploring this rigorously.
All right.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, I caught the last part of it.
Sure. Okay. Okay. All right. And are we all back? I think we are. And Susan.
Yes, we'd like to hear from you and your experience in these groups. And what are we learning? What seemed to be particularly significant for you? And again, I'd like to call on you, and we each have a minute this time. So I am going to call on you on the opposite order. Elizabeth, may we start with you, please?
Yes. So it was really nice to see how, so we all introduced the Empathy Circle training as if we were doing one, and it was really cool to see the other participants' mode of introducing, because both of them brought something specific up that I had forgotten or just didn't think to focus on. Also, I've never been to an empathy circle besides these trainings and the ones that I've facilitated. So it's a lot easier for me when I see the example of other people and what might be important to them. And I think Shyla also talked about how even if there's a conflict in an empathy circle and we can't solve it. It's the process of talking and listening that's really the important part. So I think that was a really good thought. Sorry to share your thought, but that was really helpful for me in thinking about if there's a conflict in a future empathy circle that I facilitate.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And Dominic.
Yeah, I had a nice experience. I made mistakes and it was very safe. And one of the things that Timothy was talking about was shared power, and that resonates with me. It was hard to be a facilitator and cut people off and kind of maintain order in a way that's gentle but also assertive. I'm overly gentle normally, and so I like to let people keep talking. So kind of finding that balance where, in between the two. That's a growth point for me. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Dominic. And Joni.
Yeah, similar to Dominic, I really enjoyed just kind of how Timothy acknowledged that I kind of, when I noticed someone went over time, I said sorry, and I messed up the time and I kept apologizing, and he was kind of making clear that, it's, you don't have to be apologetic, and you need to acknowledge that you have the power in the situation, and it's okay to have that power. It's gonna help everyone if you use it and be assertive about it, to just hold the circle, because really the circle, it gives everybody power to share. But if you don't use your power to stop someone from speaking too long, then other people will get to share. So yeah, I thought it was really helpful in acknowledging that definitely is an issue I have, and just realizing how important it is for me to use that power and step up.
Thank you, Joni. And B.
So I definitely had the same problem I always do, where like I get carried away and forget to pause and give my active listener a chance to actually like reflect it back to me. And like as the active listener, it's sometimes really difficult to simply reflect instead of like adding your own thoughts and feelings to it. But today I figured out, like, if I do reflect in the right way, usually that still encourages the person to like keep going and keep opening up, and frequently they would get around to whatever point I wanted to make and add. So like it was definitely a constructive sort of feeling where like helping people, I don't know how to explain it right, but like helping people get to your point without actually making your point. And that way it's still their thought and their conversation and all that sort of thing. And I thought it was really cool.
Thank you. And Mona.
Yes, it was a very grossing, like to gross and to not to gross. It's not gross. Grow. To grow. It was an opportunity to grow more, and as usual, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed my partner in it, and as Timothy said, I need to relax more and enjoy to be facilitated, enjoy the process, and not be tension about my language, my structure of the sentence. And it was very helpful for me, yes.
Yes, thank you. And Elisa. Is it Elisa?
Are you speaking to me?
Yes.
My name is pronounced Elisa.
Elisa. Thank you, Elisa. I'm learning.
No. Thank you for taking an interest. So I really liked how today we were going over what to say, and it was really nice how met each time at like each moment we were having difficulty about what things we could put in place, and what things we could do. Like some of the things we were talking about was like how to cope with like anxiety when no one volunteers to like speak first, and like our facilitator, he said that like that is fine, it's normal, and he gave us suggestions and pointers, and it was really nice to have.
Thank you, Elisa. Savannah.
I really enjoyed the time that I had. I learned a lot, and it was nice to actually try out facilitating. I was very new to it, so I wasn't really sure how to go about everything. And I think by the end, I gained a little bit more confidence, and being in the group helped me a lot with that. So,
Thank you. Daniel?
I thought it was a positive experience for me. I think I didn't feel like as I was making my mistakes, I didn't feel like I was getting judged by it. I don't feel like I was being pressured because I was or being judged pretty much. I felt very safe about it, and I also felt like everybody else is like a better listener than I am. Like everyone can be an active listener better than I can. Like and this group like that I was in was everyone was so good at active listening. And so one of the things I like to share is like last week Dominic, my buddy, called, one of the things he mentioned was like how he, or I don't know actually say this or not, but he, I like to meet everyone here, especially the people in the empathy circle. Like I'm really looking to hopefully getting to talk with the people, especially, within the circles that I had, to get to know them more.
Thank you. Monica?
I also had a really good experience with my empathy circle. Everyone was really encouraging. I kept on making a lot of mistakes, but they were easily forgiven, and it gave me encouragement to keep going.
Thank you. Shyla?
I continue to marvel at how much I learn from these empathy circles each time. I mean, it's only been my second one, but it's amazing how when we exchange ideas with an open heart and care about each other and really listen to each other, how much we can learn from each other. And the one thing that I found useful was when I'm speaking, when I'm speaking, either the active listener or the passive listener or both, if I can see some reaction from them, like if they're smiling or nodding their heads or something like that, that's very empowering to me to, okay, this person is really listening to me, okay, I can proceed type of thing. So it's that nonverbal communication that becomes important as an active listener that we can give to a speaker. Thank you.
And Wayne?
Yeah, once again, absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyed it. The opportunity to be the facilitator, introducing the empathy circles, it makes you realize what you didn't outline and things like that, and a lot of suggestions came around the group. That was awesome. The other thing is actually doing the empathy circle and facilitating it. Just gave that extra practice, and I think having the smaller groups enabled us to make those mistakes without worrying about interrupting the whole group, the whole 16. It was just sort of 4 of us, so there was an it made the learning a lot more for each one of us that was involved in a smaller group. The big learning for me today was trusting in the process. And sometimes I want answers to things. The answers will come if we trust in the process. And the more I see the process in place, the more I realize, yeah, this is a good system.
Thank you, Wayne. So I believe we've heard from all the participants. I don't think I missed anybody. So let's hear from our facilitators. How about Kelly?
Yeah, it was a great session today. Kind of don't have, it's like it just felt very complete. We had like a little ups, little downs. We closed on a really good note. I feel like everyone felt like they knew what the next thing was for them to do going forward. And yeah, just remembering what it was like the first time I did this, I felt, like, oh, I don't know this or that, but so yeah, I'm just feeling grateful that everyone's learning and excited, and let's do this. Here we go.
Here we go. Timothy?
Yeah, I'm just grateful that we got to practice together. We learned this by doing. I love what Wayne said, trusting the process. I realized that when my third participant in our small group finally got to practice, there was like a sense of completion. Like in this model, mutuality, I'm really discovering that mutuality matters. We're interested in each other's time and space. And when that mutuality happens, for me, my whole system just relaxes. Like, yep, cool, things are good. Inclusion is there. We're mutually having this time, right? And so I'm touched by that and by the folks I got to work with today. Thank you for all of your honesty and your growth and practice.
Thank you. Edwin.
Yeah, we had a really lovely group, and something that really struck with me was was the pain humanity feels in not being heard. I mean, it's very moving, to me, just to think of all the people in the world who aren't feeling heard. Maybe you feel heard with your friends, but not with your family, and just the overwhelming pain of that, and how that in terms of one of the motivations for sort of spreading this practice is to address that alienation, loneliness, and that pain. So that just became very clear in this session to me. Yeah.
Thank you. And Bill.
Yeah, I was really touched by the courage and that if people come in to learn this, I think that we are in an inflection point in history. And we need to do more listening like this in order to get ourselves out of it. And it takes a certain amount of courage to do something that's different. And I'm constantly inspired by the courage that each person brings here. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes. And I, as a facilitator trainer, started out my breakout group with a faux pas. I made some comment about we're all girls. And then we all introduced ourselves, as Bill had suggested earlier, that we start with that. And then I came in with the apology and the awareness that it's not appropriate. And indeed, we have a member who is gender fluid and didn't want to hear that we're all women. And I learned from that not to make assumptions. And I especially appreciated that our group had very much learning mode and a lot of enthusiasm, and came deeply interested in one another and went more deeply into their topics each time. We got closer and closer. Thank you. And now we move to
Kelly.
Sorry about that. Okay, so that was the second session. So before we go, are there any final? Okay, Edwin has something he wants to say. I see.
Yep. I did want one of the assignments will be to promote the training because this is our second session. We're going to be after the 5 sessions, we're going to be starting the next cohort. So already to start thinking of, who can I invite to the next session? There's been several people already through pandemic professors who have been interested in signing up. So if you can all sort of think about, who's someone that I can invite to take part in the next cohort, I'd like to encourage you to do that. And I'll be sending out some information about how to do that, how you can invite people to a LinkedIn group and that we have in a Facebook group for this cohort. So yeah, so that's just something to think about. And like I said, there'll be a whole email about kind of steps for doing that. And I'll keep reminding you about that in each cohort. Yeah, so that's it. Thanks, Kelly.
Awesome. Yeah, that's, Timothy.
Yeah, I just had a brief reminder or bit of encouragement. After Daniel spoke, it made me think of it. He says, I'd really like to get to know everybody more, not interested in my small groups, but I'd like that. And then for me, as a trainer in this work, I got to say that I need help to do it. I need encouragement, Bill, talking about how much courage this takes. So my question for each of you, how can you get to know folks in this group to have more sense of team or help or just support or encouragement or friendship? It's so meaningful. Well, number one is the buddy calls. Let's do our best to do those for sure. But also, I encourage you to make requests of each other. I think we have all of our email to reach out and say, hey, guess what? I understand you might live in my same general area. Do you want to work on, doing a circle together, or, can I run a few things by you to help me think something through, like making a specific request to connect and see if somebody says yes, no, or maybe, and, see what might work out for both of you. So I would encourage us to reach out to each other and make specific requests based on what you would want, some help or more ideas or co-leading or collaboration or whatever. So thanks for reminding me of that, Daniel. And each of you, how do you feel comfortable reaching out for each other? This is hard to do alone. So let's make friends. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think is this cohort in the group, the Google group already, Edwin? Or is that something that comes later?
In the Google, there's a group. Yeah, I think I've added everyone. So everyone should be on this email list. There's about 140 people on that list. Yeah.
That's a way that you can, there's some stuff going on there. So that's an easy way, I agree that it's really helpful to build some connections. So next week, what we're going to be doing is practicing facilitation without going through the introduction, but we're going to be practicing with some challenges. So the trainers will be giving you some different levels of challenge, nothing too intense or anything, but just to give you practice dealing with some challenges.
Just a quick check that we will do the introduction again. That's in 4 that we don't do the introduction. So oops. I just see a script. It says without, but we actually do. So I'm going to delete that right now.
Okay, so get your introduction polished up for next week, because we're going to be coming out guns blazing with our introductions, party guns, or water pistols. So yeah, we've got some assignments for the week. So there's going to be an email, but there's going to be a feedback form that we are going to ask you to fill out. So if you could remember to do that, we really appreciate it, because like you noticed, we'll be addressing the feedback that you send at the beginning of the session next week. So it's really helpful to have some feedback. Don't forget to do your empathy buddy calls, like Timothy was just saying. That's really an important part. It really will help you feel connected. And yeah, I think it's a really good thing to do. And then try to facilitate an empathy circle this week, which that's what will really make you feel comfortable as to start doing this. And I would just encourage you you know, invite people that love you, that you know don't want to fight and argue, and you know, just invite some people that want to help you and tell them like, hey, I'm doing this thing, it's important to me, you know, will you help me out? And they're going to want to help you. People want to help you if you tell them you need help. So, and I also, just my own, just if I can give you some guidance, you know, pick like a heart-centered topic, something that, you know, like what's something that brings you joy in your life, or like, you know, something that is going to just get everyone feeling good. And you don't have to pick like a really heavy, difficult topic. People will connect and share over just whatever you can just get them thinking about what gives value to them. It's a great way to start a circle. So that's my thought there. And yeah, so before we go, if you could all post in the chat one value or need that has been met for you today. So I'll put mine was the need to be heard. I was heard today. And so yeah, before we go, if everyone can do the jazz hands for our picture.
Oh, no, I have something to say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I wanted to just re-emphasize that part of this training is it was meant to be efficient and give you an experience, but it is also meant, as Edwin says, you can take it several times, you can go at your own pace. So there will be challenges, or you can have no challenges. I just wanted to let you know that you can go at your own pace. You don't have to do everything right then and then get it done and be a perfect facilitator at the end of 5 sessions or whatever. So I just wanted to let you know that that's part of the course design, is to let people go at their own pace and to feel, and you know, to take challenges as they are ready for them. And that's it. That's all. Thanks.
Great. All right. So here we go, everyone. We're gonna jazz hands out of the session today. Thanks a lot.
See you next week.
See you next week, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.